Hey Jay, you know the cool thing though about Briff Tannen?
What?
If you want, you get to make your own game with them, just like Conquer.
We're just gonna do.
We'll get to the,
We're just gonna do
we'll get
intros
to
where
that
we
and
troll him
more.
Welcome to the
All the
show. I'm Jay, and I'm so irritated I could puke.
Time for another GamerCast. I'm Rob McCallum with Jay Bartlett and Glenn Stanway. Boys, chime in and say hello.
Hi.
Also, hi.
This week we're talking about franchises, and let's just jump right in to Jay's favorite topic du jour. Hey, Conker's back! Time to make my own game because nobody gives a damn. Jay?
I'm not going to go into a big history lesson, but Conker is awesome. And
now?
For him to be stuck in a game that you create your own game is... I don't even want to talk about it. It's awful.
Here's the counterpoint. Mario Maker's out. We can make our own Mario games. Isn't that good?
Yes, that's really good, actually. I don't know. I don't
But
have the
not-
time. I don't have the time to make these big, elaborate levels, and that's my problem with games like Little Big Planet and what's the game called?
Project Spark.
It's a Project
Project Nothing. Yeah, Project Waste of Conquer. What do you think? Are you
Glenn?
gonna buy that? Are you guys gonna buy that?
Glenn, let's let Jay regroup his thoughts here because I kind of just threw that at him.
Okay.
Let's let him
angry.
really think about the awesomeness that could be Project Spark for the 3 people that have bought it, despite the million people users on their tagline.
Oh yeah, you don't buy it. It's in beta right now, so you can download it. If you have an Xbox One, you can download it.
Really? Oh,
run it.
is Conquer there?
No.
too? Conquer's not there.
Well, I don't know.
beta?
I haven't checked it for a couple of weeks, so
If they give you a beta and Conquer's not even there, that's just
he wasn't initially in the game. It's being added, as I understand it. But
okay. But this is my thing. Is it? Do you know? Is it like a Conquer skin pack? Like, do you get like enemies from the level?
That's
and
the
level
impression
design,
I
or-
got, was that it's going to be like some sort of Conquer.
So what they're saying is, okay,
which they will probably charge you money.
we're not going to give you a Conquer game, but here you go, idiots, make your own. I don't like that. I don't like that one bit.
But he's back, Jay. He's back. And now you get to do it yourself. He's back.
That was the highest point for me at E3, and then within 3 seconds, the lowest point. Because I thought he was cutting up Project Spark. You know, he cut the logo with the chainsaw. Like, get this stupid game out of here. Then there's going to be a Conquer game, but no. Not at all.
Instead, he'll cut it up and still be a part of it. Mm-hmm. Oh, that squirrel. So that's all you got. I was expecting a little bit more, to be honest. That's like half the episode outline I got. I thought we were just talking about Conquer.
He can't talk through the loathing in his mouth. It's getting in the way. I don't know. I think it's different with Mario Maker because there's at least been a substantial number of Mario titles that Nintendo's made, right? Like, I mean, there's all that history and there's all those releases, and they're basically just letting you take one of those old releases and the most basic concept and letting you play around with it. And I think the difference with Conquer is Conquer's more of a, I don't know what, like a niche character really, because
I think
only really was the lead character in the one game, right?
Yeah.
Well, two. It was a portable game too that he was in, right? I can't remember.
Pocket Tales for Game Boy
Pocket
Color.
Tales, yeah.
But I think if you had made a Mario 64 level design maker, I would have the same attitude. I think it's the whole, when you get into the whole 3D aspect, it's like you're making hills and valleys and trees. And me personally, I don't even have time to play all these games that the pros make. So I'm not going to sit there and make it. I think the Mario Maker works because it's a 2D. Put the blocks here, put the turtle here, boom, boom, boom. Done.
I fooled around with Project Spark a bit, and I think it's a really great idea. I think there are some people who are going to do some really interesting things with it, but I find that it's awesome to have those tools, and it's a really, really great idea to be able to give that stuff to creative people. It's just that my experience with the output is that generally most people just demonstrate why they shouldn't be game designers when they make levels of those things.
And that's how I feel. That's how I feel, Glenn. I feel like it's almost like the Guitar Hero conundrum, right? Like you got tons of people that are spending all these times to learn how to play guitar. Click, 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 click. Why don't you take that time and actually just learn to play the real instrument instead of Guitar Hero? Kind of feel like that about Project Spark, and to be honest, I don't know too much, but I'd rather just learn how to become a game designer proper.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so take the hundreds of hours that you're gonna pour into making the Conquer level, and just go to school and learn how to program and make real games. Is what you're saying?
Like
because go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna play the other side of the coin, because if you remember back in the day when people were designing Half-Life mods and then getting hired by Valve to do programming and level design,
awesome.
right? Like
Yeah.
that. I mean, it's definitely an awesome opportunity and an awesome window for creative people. It's just that now, because that stuff is so mass available, it's like, anybody with a microphone and a half decent computer can make a crap song demo and post it on SoundCloud. But I mean, none,
or an award-winning podcast.
Cheers.
Case in point. But it's the same thing with the game design, right? Like and the community isn't picky about what it rates. So I mean, somebody sees a level and they rate it 5 stars, and you play it and you're like, really, this is a 5-star level? And I don't know. I don't want to take anything away from the people who put their time and effort into making that stuff. It's just like, it's clear that giving people those tools without really giving them a sense of the mechanics or the design elements that have to go behind it leads to really kind of lackluster results, I guess.
I get it.
Well, Jay, I was going to say, Jay, you and I had tried to do this forever with Tony Hawk. You remember how great we were not at making levels for that game?
Yeah, Tony Hawk 3, we messed around with the park editor quite a bit. Remember, we named them after Kiss songs. Every park was named after a Kiss song. That was pretty sweet. Yeah, we did that for quite a while, actually. I remember we spent a good couple of afternoons in my room there.
Good couple of 45 minutes realizing we suck.
Yeah, well, we couldn't get, there was the gap spacing and the height, and then we had this great elaborate design we wanted, and then the memory would run out of the level, right? And then we had to scale it down. And I guess my point to all that is, games like Minecraft, Project Spark, Little Big Planet, I get it. There's definitely an audience for that, and I'm all for it. I just personally, I have such a backlog of games myself. I don't even have time to play these games that professionals have made, let alone sit there and make my own. Do you know what I mean? But I'm not crapping on it. I think they're a great idea. Back to the original point, I think, like you said, yes, Conker is a niche character, but he is such a great character, and to put him as more or less a throwaway. Now, again, we don't have much details about it as of right now, other than you can play as Conker, but I think that's just such a waste. Such a waste.
And Glenn, I think to your point a little bit, like you said, there's so many different kind of Mario titles out there that a Mario Maker, a small, and we don't know how deep it is because there wasn't a lot shown at this year's E3, but like just a Mario Maker is almost in the vein of another Mario Paint, so it just seems like an evolution, a part of that franchise. Like it's kind of like one of the things they haven't done yet. So it makes a little bit more sense for them to do that since they mine Mario really deeply across the board.
Yeah, but
in
I was just going to
ahead.
say, I think that Mario Paint back in the day made sense because not everyone had home computers. So that was more like you could do songs, you could do drawings, and I got that because at the time I didn't have a PC that could do anything like that. Again,
sure
man,
you did. You were playing Jedi Knight, weren't you? And Doom 2?
No, Mario Paint was before that, much before that.
It was like 93, wasn't it?
Remember my computer when we did multiplayer Doom 2? Our neighbor had to make us a boot disk because I didn't have enough memory to run Doom 2. Remember that, man? That's how crappy my computer was.
The hilarious part is like the disc was like more powerful than the computer.
Yeah. Yeah, and I had every time we started it, I had to get him to put the boot disk in, do the prompt or whatever it was to run the thing because I still am horrible at PC games. I don't understand them, but that's for another day.
So from Conker to Mario to Doom, clearly, everyone, we are talking about franchises today. Before we get into that, there's a little bit of a to-do list. Let's start with the movie, because there's a lot of stuff happening with the movie right now. It's actually a really exciting time to be part of the NES Club. We've got 2 conventions coming up. We've got Con Bravo in July, which is July 18th to 20th in Hamilton. You guys excited for that? The answer is yes.
I can't wait, man. I can't wait to go, and I can't wait for us to do the panel. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to be a part of any of the con stuff yet, so even if I can get out to see you guys do your thing, that'd be pretty great. I can see if I can make that happen.
That would be great to have you out there. I mean, we're going to be talking about collecting nightmares, which is a topic that we did on the show, but I think I've had a few new experiences since then, collecting nightmares, karma, and of course, collecting etiquette, which is a through line through the film, and we'll be jumping off different experiences we had. So everybody that is planning on coming, please bring your questions. We want to make it as interactive as possible. I'll have a whole new outline that I've thought ahead of time, so I know all the answers, but I get to throw them at Jay, because that's how this podcast works.
That's right.
Kind of get to prep ahead of time and ambush you guys. And we also got the Classic Gaming Expo coming up in September, which is a convention in the U.S. that Jay is coming down for in Las Vegas.
I sure am. And there's going to be a lot of fear and loathing, I'll tell you that. Get it?
Yes. I see what you did there.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never been...
Yeah, you haven't been to Vegas before.
I've been everywhere in the States, as you know from the film, but I haven't been to Vegas, no.
And you're going by car because you're afraid to fly.
Well, I'm not going to talk about
Spoiler
that
alert
now,
for the film.
Oh,
It's a
did I
big
spoil the
spoiler,
film?
Glenn. A little bit. I think
it's
you
a
just,
road trip.
You wrecked the whole third act, where Jay stands
Oh.
at the airport for 20 minutes.
and nothing happens, and I'm supposed to board, and
You
then I
have,
just
to, you
run
have
away.
to knock him out a la B.A. Baracus on the A-team to get him on board
It's
the flight.
the big thing is like it's like the classic race to the airport. Can you do it before it takes off? And he just stands there and watches it leave. He's like, either way.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to hang out with you in Vegas for a week or so. It's going to be awesome, man. My buddy Zach's coming with me, so it's going to be an interesting road trip. And I think it's going to be a lot like Fear and Loathing, minus the psychedelic drugs, of course.
It's pretty cool. And I got one more tidbit of the film that I'll throw out there for everyone. Our runtime is getting so much closer to the kind of the final echelon era. We are sitting at 98 minutes right now. A cool, trim, slick, and polished 98 minutes. I've got more little details to talk about the film, but as always, we record a bunch of these shows when we try to at once, so I'll save some of them for the other stuff.
And thanks for
that's
all
going on.
the new likes, everyone.
Yeah.
We're really happy to release that new clip, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know it was very, very short, but that 2 minutes flew by, man. But it was a great clip.
The new clip, Glenn. What did you think of the new clip? Tell us your impressions.
I thought it was great. I have, contrary to what some people listening to this might think, I have really not seen a lot of footage of the film. I've seen slightly more than the average person has, but that's really not saying much. So it was great to see another clip. I like how things are coming together. I know we saw some comments about things like the game counters and just a little graphic showing which kind of key titles Jay's picked up and title graphics and that kind of thing. And it's got a great look to it, and it looks like it's really coming together well. I'm really excited to see the final product.
So, Glenn, I got to throw this out there because I got actually 2 questions this week about you.
About me?
And a lot of people, about you. A lot of people know Jay and I from the movie, of course. We both do endless promotion. I've been doing a lot of podcasts. We're getting Jay back onto that interview front so we can kind of give him as much center stage as possible. But a lot of people are catching on to this podcast, which is really cool. Again, thanks for listening. But they're like, who is this Glenn guy? We know he's producing the podcast. So, Glenn, give us like the 30-second version of how you know us, just in case people aren't sure who this guy talking is from behind the curtain.
Sure. I've known Jay for probably a little over a decade now. We used to be co-workers at the same video game retailer who will go nameless. And that's how I know Jay, and we've been friends for a really long time. We're into a lot of the same stuff. We play in a band together.
We do, yeah.
We've been good friends for a really long time, and we've done a podcast before. And from what I understand, just based on the fact that Jay and I worked on that together, when you guys were looking for some help producing this one, you were kind enough to look in my direction, and I've had a lot of fun doing it with you. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, bye.
And you guys have your EP is out, right, for Astoria? Astoria, a couple tracks are released. Is AstoriaRockandRoll.com. What's the URL so people can check that out, or Facebook page?
It's AstoriaRockandRoll.bandcamp.com. That is N as opposed to and. So AstoriaRockandRoll.
Like Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' exactly, without the apostrophes and stuff. And it's just 2 tracks right now. It's a couple of songs called Save the Day and So Far Gone. There's a full EP that'll be coming out in the fall, which I think is going to wind up having 6 tracks on it, if I remember right.
Yeah.
But, we're pretty excited about it. We think they turned out really well. We did that at a studio south of Brantford, Ontario called Jukasa Studios with my good friend Darren Majorowski acting as engineer, and we're really happy with how the product turned out. We're glad to have people hear it.
the cool thing is they'll get to hear it in the NES Club.
Yeah,
They'll
absolutely.
get to hear it in the NES Club, which is kind of rad.
We went through a bunch of different bass players
Jay.
before we met Glenn. I just want to say that he's brought something just magical to the band. like the bass riffs he comes up with are just, he's not following the guitar. He's actually playing his own melody. It's awesome, man.
Cool. Well, that's a little bit of preview for the soundtrack of the NES Club and a little bit more about Glenn, and of course another side of Jay that we've talked about. We sometimes refer to him as the video game rock star. It's not just a catchy title. He actually does rock and roll.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get to a question from one of our fans. We have a question from a guy named Steve, and I believe it's Steve, who is vying to be our number one fan of both the podcast and the NES Club, I believe. And he says... this is just kind of snipped from a conversation. He goes, I got a couple questions. Just did Jay actually finish the quest question? But that's half the fun of watching the documentary, I guess. I was talking to Todd Rogers, though. You two really made an impression on him, considering now he wants to be Canadian.
Yeah, man.
I think if anything, I'd like to hear about, on the GamerCast at least, what was it like for you guys to meet the gaming icons and the celebrities that you did, and who made the biggest impression on you?
Do you want me to go first? I don't.
I want you to go first.
I don't want to pick any favorites. Again,
just who made like the biggest impression on you?
Todd Rogers. Yeah, he's the coolest dude I think I've ever met. He is such a down to earth, funny. Oh man, is he funny, Rob? Holy cow. He made us laugh, and I mean, I've been following Todd for a long, long time, right? So getting a chance to meet one of my idols was, and getting to hang out with him already, I was beside myself. But we picked him up at the airport, and within the first 5 seconds, he had Rob and I in tears laughing. He's one of the funniest dudes I think I've ever met.
He's just funny and genuine, and unfortunately, the film can only be 90 minutes. Because there was like flashes where in my head where I'm like, how can I make this section like 15 minutes? Because just being around a guy like Todd Rogers is it's so funny. I'm watching my words right here because I'm so passionate about what a great guy that is. And the guy came out to Houston to be with us, to be a part of this. Sure, we were the ones profiting, but he kind of like, took us under his wing, and then we're like instant friends with the guy. It was just so cool. But then Jay, we hang out with a guy like Ben Gold. Like, how cool was that to go into, like, Ben Gold's, like, parents' house where they shot Chasing Ghosts and just see this huge cavalcade of memorabilia over the last 30 years?
Man, he was...
that smacked me with a history 2x4.
Yeah, he was pulling out Nintendo World Championships posters signed by Thor. He was pulling out, the famous article of, him and Bill Mitchell and everybody... standing there, Life magazine article, that's it, yeah, standing by their arcade cabinets, and to hold that magazine and have that picture in front of me while he's telling me about it, man, you remember I was holding back the tears. It was so exciting.
He gave you a magazine, didn't he? Didn't he give you
he gave me a copy of the Life magazine, which is upstairs and is waiting to be framed still, yeah. But oh God, yeah. And I mean, and you got to meet, let's talk about Bill. You got to meet Bill Mitchell,
right.
and
you got to talk to him on the phone.
I did.
You got to talk to him on the phone. I got to meet Billy Mitchell at Comic-Con before I even got to Canada to start filming your Quest and Challenge, and that was really cool. It was like a last-minute thing. It was on the day I had to leave. It was like an hour before my flight left, or an hour before I had to get to the airport. I heard he was going to be at this restaurant. My good buddy Brent Dolan said, "Oh, you got to go check out this restaurant. Billy Mitchell and Richie Knuckles are going to be there. Tell him Brent sent you. Tell him I said hi." And yeah, no problem. I'm sure it'll all work out. I get there, and sure enough, bam, there's a little bit of a lineup to get in because mainly people are hungry. But then there he comes, the flowing locks, the American flag tie. Bam! Billy Mitchell, everybody! There he is, and I walked up to him like, "Hey, man, how's it going?" I don't know if Todd Rogers mentioned it to you because we had already been talking to Todd at that point. I said, "Look, we're doing this documentary on Nintendo. I'd love to interview. Is there any chance that we can make this happen? It'll take like 5 minutes." He's like, "Absolutely. Let's do it right now. That would be great." It's like, cool. And then he led the way and like stood in front of a Donkey Kong cabinet. Like... the guy's directing himself, but would you expect anything less from Billy Mitchell? I mean, it's just kind of funny,
the
right?
fact that you got to interview him in front of the Donkey Kong arcade machine, like, it just doesn't get any better than that. You know what I mean? Like, that's...
I
It's
would have
amazing.
I would have literally taken like any backdrop because it was just so cool meeting this guy. And I mean, you and I are huge King of Kong fans.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into the whole conspiracy of whether, it was fake or not fake. It's a great movie. We got exposed to a huge culture out there of competitive gamers. And then to kind of meet this guy, I don't want to say it was like starstruck, but I was more excited for the opportunity to get this guy a part of our film and get his opinion in the can, so to speak.
Well, he's
So
important.
it's just like-
He's important to the film. I mean, his take on Nintendo is so important to you and I. So, I mean, right away when we were talking about, icons we wanted to talk to in the film, he was, obviously, boom, number one. I mean, he's Mr. Donkey Kong. I mean, there's been the world record for Donkey Kong has changed hands so many times now, but to you and I, he's always going to be the champion. I mean, there's a presence. There's a presence to Bill. There's just something about him that when you see him, he's like a rock star. He's awesome.
Well, Jay, there's a difference between people, right?
There is a difference between people, quote unquote.
I don't want to belabor the point, but we got actually a little bit of flack for having so many arcade guys, kind of not appear in the film, but we touted that they're going to be part of the film. Just to set the record straight one more time, Jay, I know you've heard me talk about it, but maybe for Glenn, we wanted so many of these arcade guys because they were around in the era before the NES home console hit. So we thought their opinion was so critical, instead of the people that just grew up with it and it was just there. Like they were born with it and Nintendo was always around, or they got it for like their Christmas gift or birthday when they turned 3 or 4. We really wanted some like objective perspective for people that were part of the arcade era to see what happened to their stuff and see the evolution of the NES console. So that's why, for anybody listening, why we have like guys like Todd Rogers, Ben Gold, and Billy Mitchell and part of this, and other guys in the arcade era.
Yeah.
Jay,
So
what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I think I'm gonna go with Todd as. I mean, for me, besides Bill, and again, I'm so jealous, Rob. You got so lucky there. But for me,
It was luck. It was completely luck.
To meet Todd Rogers, I always use the analogy, a super hockey fan getting to hang out with Wayne Gretzky for a day. That's pretty much what it's like. I mean, Todd was the first world champion. He was the first, rock star gamer. He's the man. He's Mr. Activision. So getting to hang out with him, getting to game with him, he would break down a few NES games for us and how he did strategies, and for him to go down the list of the hundreds and hundreds of world records he has, dude, I'm like getting emotional thinking about it. Just so awesome.
Here's a few quick ones from me too. I had a lot of fun hanging out with Greg Pavich, who of course is behind the Cheetahman games, because I really liked listening to like his business perspective on everything, and how he kind of fell into the scene. I thought that was really interesting and provided a different perspective than some of the other kind of gamers that we met. Meeting Thor was really kind of cool because I am such an NES kid. So to meet the guy that won NWC was kind of cool. I mean, you expect certain things and stuff like that, and to be honest, Thor is maybe like the complete opposite. He's just a very humble guy, really kind, a big kind of heart. NES loves it, of course, but that's not all that's him. So discovering who he was really kind of neat too. And even just kind of Richie Knuckles talking to like another collector of video games, but a guy who's much more into the arcade cab collecting. That was really neat too, because even though I'm not like a huge arcade guy, it was really cool to still have that common language as a collector. So those guys were really kind of cool to meet as well.
I think you would be if you had the space. Same with me. I don't think it's so much.
It's always a space issue. Now it's a space issue.
You can find a ton of them for cheap. I think it's, not the money. I think it's more, definitely space. Because if I could, I would line my walls with arcade cabs. So, Steve, I just want to say, give a shout out to Steve. Thanks again, man, for all the support. And to answer your question, Todd Rogers. Yeah, definitely.
All right, so let's dive into the show a little bit now that we're kind of halfway through it. Now, there's a little bit of a caveat to this question. What's the best franchise out there, guys, and why? No Mario, Zelda, and Glenn, no Metroid.
So you asked the question, and then you right away take away Glenn's favorite game.
But what if that's the answer?
So other than those ones, Jay, you and I always kind of take Mario and... Jay and I always take Mario and Zelda out of like these big questions because it's always going to go back and forth between them. And I'm just going to say Metroid out of it too.
Okay, so...
Just because But
saying,
we understand that Metroid is like a huge thing for you. So we're just going to assume that it's almost on those levels.
we don't prep any of this. We don't have any time. You come at us with these questions. I just need you to be a
that
little...
I've apparently thought about all day to completely ambush you to come up with the right
That's
answers.
right. A little more specific. Like, are you talking Nintendo franchises? Or are you talking like just game franchises in general?
Anything. Game franchises, across the board. It could be PC stuff. I don't know. What do you guys think?
The greatest franchise, in my opinion, are you ready? Drum roll, is World of Warcraft.
Ooh.
Hands down.
You say World of Warcraft?
Yes.
That's a game, though. Or do you
That's a
mean
game with expansion
Warcraft
packs.
in general?
Yeah, okay, so Warcraft in general. Yeah, like the world of Warcraft. Haha, I see what I did there?
Why is that the greatest franchise out there? Because right now it just seems like there's one awesome title in that franchise. But go ahead.
But within that, no, well, that's arguable because you have
That's taken a lot away from Warcraft 2 and
1 and 2, yeah. But you also have the expansion packs within WoW, which I think are sequels in their own right. Why? I just think Blizzard, everything about that game is done right. The story is fantastic. The lore, I mean, you can almost compare it. You know, people could, what am I trying to say here? People say Mass Effect has this huge world, which it does. But if you compare it to something like WoW, Mass Effect shows you a little bit of these worlds and tells you a little bit about these worlds. But World of Warcraft, you actually get to go into all these places that you hear and read about in the fiction. Does that make sense?
No, yeah. I mean, I think I'm not a huge fan of Warcraft, and Jay, you and I have had talks about this. I played it for a long time, but I do think it's an excellent kind of study in world building. Just to see all the detail that they've gone in. Glenn, you know what? I feel kind of bad. I'm going to give you like 30 seconds to explain why Metroid is the best franchise out there, and then I'll wait for another answer on another possible franchise that is great.
You know what? I probably wouldn't pick Metroid.
Okay,
even though
cool.
you took it away from me. I love
I'm giving it back.
I love Metroid, but I mean, there's different types of Metroid games. I think even Nintendo now looks at the 2D and the 3D stuff as almost kind of separate. They want us,
which is super interesting, right? They're creating two franchises.
Yeah, they made that comment after E3 about how they want to continue doing Metro, but they still want to be able to honor both styles of gameplay because they realize there's an audience for both, and there's guys like me who love both for very, very different reasons. I love Super Metroid and I love Metroid Prime for completely different reasons, but I still think they're equally amazing games. I would say if I had to pick one, I'd probably go Metal Gear. To me, every Metal Gear release always feels like an event. And there's very few franchises now that feel that way to me. Like, everything else just feels like it's like, it comes out every year because it has to.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of history. There's a lot of great characters. There's some goofiness, too, certainly, and probably more than a few plot holes. But, I mean...
I think, for me, and not to cut you off, man, but I think if they treated Metal Gear more like they treat Mass Effect, I would be more inclined to play it. Because the amount of time you're sitting there watching cutscenes, it should be like an action RPG. Do you know what I mean? No?
I don't know.
I think if it was built more like Mass Effect, I think I would be more interested in Metal Gear.
If I think franchises and I can't take Mario and I can't take Zelda, that's probably got to be in my top 5 just in terms of notoriety, name recognition, quality of your playable character, whether it's Snake or it's Big Boss Snake or whoever.
Raiden, hello, thank you.
Memorable enemy characters. I mean, to me, it's just got everything you need. And like I said, they still don't come out frequently enough that it feels like it's just an exercise in expectation every time one comes out. It still feels like an event when a new Metal Gear game comes out, and the build and all the trailers and all the work that kind of goes into building the hype for those games. So
okay, Robbie, let's hear it.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I'm sitting here listening to you guys, and you guys are making a lot of good points. Even though I'm not like a huge Warcraft fan, I don't have a ton of Metal Gear experience. I got that one for PlayStation 4. I can't even remember
Ground Zeroes.
what it is, but it was Ground Zeroes, and I was like, man, this is huge. I've got like the Metal Gear Solid Legacy pack for PlayStation 3 in my pile that I want to kind of get through. So I've never played any of that stuff. And I'm excited, of course, for the Phantom Pain when it comes out. I honestly, off the top of my head, for like half a second, Jay, and we'll get to this a little bit later, I thought Sonic is a really good franchise, and I kind of get excited about that stuff. but then I start thinking about what's
What?
happened to Sonic.
What?
Yeah. So,
Sonic
So I
Sonic
honestly
is the
think-
car crash that you can't look away from. Sorry, go ahead.
So I honestly think I would probably have to go with Final Fantasy. That's pretty big franchise out there. There is a lot of kind of people that don't like a lot of the more recent entries. I think after 7, they're kind of gone downhill. But to start with the NES one and some of the Famicom entries, and then the Super Nintendo ones are pretty good. And obviously Final Fantasy 7 is great.
I'm going to have to politely disagree with you, my friend. I mean,
Oh, what a shocker!
when a Final Fantasy comes out, you can flip a coin, in my opinion, if it's going to be good or not. There's good ones, there's bad ones, there's good ones, there's bad ones. So I disagree, but I see your point.
But like Glenn said, I think maybe the measure of a good franchise is it an event when a title launches, and I think Final Fantasy will always remain like a big kind of staple.
I
It was
think
one of the reasons I got a PS4.
The three franchises that we picked, oh yeah, they're all events, definitely. I would agree there. I just, honestly, what's the last Final Fantasy that you really, really enjoyed? Just be honest.
10.
10? Yeah?
Final Fantasy 3.
See?
Final Fantasy
Okay.
3 but here's the deal. I never had a PlayStation 2, never had a PlayStation 1. So I haven't really played anything.
And
I've never played Final
Not
Fantasy
to confuse
7.
everyone,
I've never played it.
we're talking about the American 3, R3. Which
Yeah,
is,
so
I believe,
was it
they're
6?
6. They're 6, yeah.
Yeah.
The Japanese
so I've
6.
never played Final Fantasy 7. I've never played 10. I've got them all. It's just I haven't had time to play them.
You never played Final Fantasy 7.
Never had a PlayStation, man. I've got a PS3. I never had a 1 or a 2, so couldn't play.
Well, there's these hunts that people go on and they collect retro games, Rob, and then they play them. It's pretty cool.
What?
You can buy old systems and hook them up to a TV.
Some people even make them
What?
make them into films.
Some
these
people do,
quests.
yeah.
You guys are like blowing my mind right now. I thought once it's out on the shelf after 2 weeks, it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. Well, some
So
people think
here's the
that.
next question for you guys. What games should be expanded upon for more titles and maybe to create a franchise out of them?
You know what I'm going to say. Conker's Bad Fur Day, ladies and gentlemen. Conker's
But
Bad
here's the
Fur
deal.
Day.
But should we make Conquer a franchise or just release one more title?
I don't understand why. It was the end of the N64 cycle. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was the last title to be released. I could be wrong.
Wasn't there an Xbox one? Wasn't there?
No,
an
no.
Xbox one
On
after
the
that?
N64, that was literally the last game that came out. I think was Conker.
Mm-hmm.
The Xbox one was not an HD remake, but it was a
remake.
It was a remake of the original, and then they had the Xbox Live multiplayer, which was cool, but it was just a remake of the game. So we've had one game, if you don't include the Game Boy Color game. And Conker's appeared in Diddy Kong Racing, and that was about it. I want to see Conker turn into a franchise. He deserves it. He's hilarious. Who doesn't want to play with a drunken squirrel? The game is awesome, and he swears all the time.
Wow, that's got to be the open of the show. Who doesn't want to play with a drunken squirrel? Briff Trannon does.
Briff Trannon.
That should be they need to have that on the package for the new game. That's just their advertising campaign.
Okay,
right there.
so mine is Conker. That's off the top of my head, Conker. Go.
Glenn, what do you think? And maybe think about it this way too, guys. What game should be the next kind of Madden where we get a game every year or every other year?
God, nothing.
From this franchise.
Yeah, I agree, G. I don't want the same title every year. I don't want that from anything. I want.
All right, well, let's skip ahead then to the kind of the next thing. How can these Madden or the Assassin's Creeds or Call of Duties be better or fresh again? These games that we get every year or every other year by different kind of development teams. What can make them fresh? We've said this before, Jay. Your conundrum is you want more of the Nintendo first party games, but you don't want too many.
But you can
so
do
there's
it.
a fine line there.
You can do it without oversaturating the market. I don't think asking for more than one Mario Kart a generation is oversaturating it. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
So what do we do with the Maddens and Assassin's Creeds and Call of Duties? And
it's tough
I guess you
because-
could throw every sports game in there for that matter, even the NHL stuff, which I'm a huge fan of.
I really, really, really like Assassin's Creed. I really do. I'm not necessarily a fan of the framing device, but I like the basic gameplay, and I like having those kind of historical playgrounds to run around in. That's the most fun about those games. And my issue is I just don't need to see one every year.
But honestly, and I might be wrong here, but have you ever finished one?
Yeah,
because I've started every one of them, and I just lose interest.
Yeah,
man. I don't know why.
I never finished the first one. I finished 2. I finished Brotherhood, and I finished 4. And I finished 3 too, actually, but I didn't do any of the side stuff because it just drove me crazy.
It's the kind of franchise that I'm more interested in the story than I am actually playing it. Does that make sense?
Agreed.
You know what I mean? Like, I love the
100%.
story of Assassin's Creed, but I don't like playing it every year. I play it for a little bit and then I lose interest, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't need one every year. Like, I mean, I feel like if Ubisoft, I mean, they want money, but
those bastards.
You know, couldn't they do Far Cry this year and then do Assassin's Creed next year and then do another Far Cry the year after that? I don't understand why it's always getting.
Well, you know, EA was doing that for a while with, you know, you'd have Battlefield and then you'd have Medal of Honor.
And you have different teams working on the game. So I get that these aren't games that they slap together in 12 months. Like, there's teams working on these things for a couple of years, and it's just they alternate the release schedules, right? But I just feel like, you know, you get a team that comes out with something and they do a tiny bit of innovation to it, and it's just enough to make it feel kind of fresh, maybe for at least a few hours while you're playing it. But it would be awesome if they just took some time to just almost reinvent it and tackle it in a completely different way, as opposed to just kind of, you know, building these little minor kind of things onto the existing framework.
Yeah. Let me.
Are sports games the exception?
I was just gonna flip it to you, man, and say, you're obviously a big big hockey fan. How come you don't buy NHL every year? Do you feel like? Sorry to cut you off again, but do you feel like you don't need to? Because again, I don't play sports games, but it seems to me that couldn't you just do like minor expansion packs or updates, like roster updates each year? Could you not do that? Like,
yeah,
do you have to buy a $60 disc every year?
Yeah, I mean, you'd think they would just release like a $10 DLC to update all the rosters, like you're saying. For me, I don't buy it every year because they changed the control scheme. It's a completely different game, and how it controls going from like the Xbox and earlier stuff, like back to the Genesis days with like NHL 94 and like everything after like the PS3 version, the first one that came out. It's just a different control scheme, and it feels like a different game, and I really don't like it. I mean, I guess a lot of people say it's like way better, but it's almost like playing Smash TV. It's like dual analog now, and it's just like just different for my head to figure out. So that's the only reason why I don't buy those games. I'll just be content to play the older versions. Are sports games the exception?
I really don't know if I can offer an opinion on that, just because I know I'm like Jay. I don't buy sports games. I mean, I buy some years when I'm really, really excited for the beginning of baseball season. And full disclosure, baseball is literally the only sport I like.
I was going to say, I'm surprised you don't buy the show.
It's literally the only one I like, and I'm really, really into baseball. But some years when I'm really, really excited about the start of baseball season, I'll cave and I'll buy the show and then not play it, which happens every time I do it. But there are guys, and I remember this from my days of selling video games, but there are guys who will be there every bloody launch day, and they'll buy that Madden title day one, and it's every year. And I've never done that, and I don't know if I can ever really completely understand it, because I'm just not built to do that. So I don't know if I'm well equipped to try and give you a response on sports games.
I'll give you a response. I have no. It's not what you think. I have zero problem with sports games coming out each year. I get it. And there's a lot of gamers that are just sports gamers. And that's their thing. You know, once a year they buy their NHL, they buy their FIFA, whatever. And that's cool. I have no problem with that, man. I just don't like the idea of, like you said, Rob, let's test this new control scheme this year. It's like, no, you guys figure that out first and then release the game. It's almost like each year it's like a constant beta test with sports games. Oh, let's throw this in this year and see if that works.
That's
see
actually
if they like
a really
this.
good point, and I hadn't thought about that. But you're right. There are guys and girls, I suppose, too, who they own a PlayStation or an Xbox, and all they do is they buy a Madden or they buy an NHL every year. And, you know, maybe they buy a Call of Duty once in a while or something else like that. But you're right. There's some people who literally do nothing but play sports games on those consoles.
Cool with me, man.
So, like, how can these big, like, mainstay yearly franchises be better, though, or, like, fresh again? Is it just a matter of not releasing them every year so that you have something to look forward to? I mean,
Well-
like, what would you guys say that can make them better? Is it just, like, a different kind of story, a different kind of approach? Like Modern Warfare, right? Like, or Advanced Warfare, or whatever Modern Warfare 3 was. You know, they kind of made it futuristic, and they had, like, the Russians invading America, and that was kind of cool. I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, how can we make this stuff fresh again?
I would say take time off, but these big companies like EA and Activision, you know, they like to make money. I get that. So they have different developers working on different games. You have, you know, a different development team that works on the Black Ops, and then you have another team that works on Modern Warfare and stuff like that. The problem I'm having now is that the campaign is like 4 hours long. And the online is where it's at, which is cool, except you automatically have a shelf life to that now, because you have exactly 1 year before the next Call of Duty comes out. And then guess what? All that stuff and all that work you did online now means nothing. That's what I don't like. I don't like that. If I could take my Call of Duty profile, multiplayer profile, and carry it on to the next game, I might be more inclined to play them.
It's really not going to stop unless people just, in some crazy, weird mass mentality way, just stop buying this stuff, because ultimately it's a machine, man. Like, these companies are just in it to make money, and as long as they can put out a product that has a certain degree of quality and a certain degree of polish to it, that is just new enough, like has just enough new ideas or something a little bit different to kind of encourage you to get it as a new product, but it's still similar enough that you're still getting the same game you enjoy, they're going to keep pumping them out. And it's frustrating because, yeah, I think if somebody, I think the way to freshen them up is to have somebody really just stop making them for a bit and actually take a look at making them in a totally different way and approaching it in a totally different way. But that's not going to happen because they want to guarantee they're going to sell that title, and the only way they can do that is if it's similar enough to the one that came before it.
So what you're saying is they should release a Madden or an NHL that's in first-person perspective, and that would make things great.
They have that, don't they?
I don't know.
You can do that, right?
I don't play video games.
There are, you know, I mean, even with sports games, I mean, they do stuff like, you know, you have your career mode where you play one player and you play one position. Like, I can get the show and I can be a pitcher, and that's it. And I can watch other computer controlled characters field for me and stuff if I want to.
You're always the pitcher, Glenn. You're always the pitcher. So here's the next question. I think I kind of alluded to it earlier, so I kind of think I can predict Jay's answer.
Conquer.
What's the Conquer? What's the most abused character, guys, in terms of franchises? Why is he abused or she abused, and how can we fix that?
Oh, you mean Joanna Dark? Is that what you're getting at?
No,
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Glenn, I'm going to have to agree with you.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic, unfortunately, has had every genre of game, and they've all been bad. I'm sorry, I'll say it. Except maybe the racing games are good. Sonic Racing's cool.
The side-scrolling ones, the early ones were pretty good.
I'm gonna be that guy. I was never a big Sonic fan.
I'm also that guy. I got to be honest.
I was never a big
You
Sonic
got
fan.
your brain. I'm sorry, but your brains probably aren't equipped to handle blast processing.
That was it. Yeah, that must have been it. I was too busy enjoying the lush colors of Super Mario World.
I never thought that the combination of extraordinary speed and precision platforming was a sensible way to go.
It was almost.
Well, we'll talk about that in a future episode about speedruns.
Well,
but
no,
go ahead.
I mean, it's one thing if people choose to play the game that way, but I'm saying, like, basically trying to build a game around that as your actual mechanic, and I don't feel like it was well designed to accommodate either of those things.
I just didn't like the 1, 2, and 3, and even Sonic and Knuckles. They didn't control like Mario. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't the same.
It felt buttery.
Yeah, it was.
Me, yeah.
And you're so fragile. I mean, Mario one hit dead, fine, but Sonic, when you get hit, it's like you cry.
Yeah, like, whether or not
awful.
you like the Genesis side-scrolling stuff, I mean, I'm not a fan, and neither is Jay. But I mean, I realize there's a lot of people out there who love those games. And that's
I
cool.
love it, man.
And
I love those, man. When Sonic 3 launched, I was so excited. Like, I don't want to say like Mario 3 excitement, but pretty excited for Sonic 3.
And I respect that, but I think what is fair to say is that Sonic's popularity as a character has always kind of far exceeded the diminishing quality of the title season. He's a really popular character, and the games have just not kept up with him.
Like I love Sonic. Yeah, you're right. I love him as a character. He's one of the coolest mascot characters that are.
They tried to move it to 3D, and it was just a train wreck. And they have not seemed to have been able to kind of hit on the right formula again since.
I liked the idea of the not the Genesis, the Dreamcast one, where you're in this city and you talk to people. I thought that was a really cool idea. It just didn't translate well, you know. I think they wanted to try something so different from Mario 64, but at the same time keep the core elements of Mario 64, and it was a mess. What is this? What is this game? Have you guys ever played Sonic and the Black Knight? What is that? What is that game?
I don't know.
I feel like Rob should have known.
Isn't that like a Wii title?
Yeah, it's on the Wii. Sonic the Black Knight. There's Sonic Colors. I've never played any of these games.
I honestly, I'm guessing that it's probably like a thing where he's sent back in time, and it's like a 3D roaming one. I haven't played it. There's a lot of Wii titles I haven't played, but a few people online, like our good friend Ian, likes to point out some Wii titles that people never saw. So maybe he can chime in on. Ian, who is also vying to be our number one fan against Steve, and they're going to like an online death match to prove it.
Really?
I choose to believe.
Yeah.
I choose to believe that Sonic the Black Knight is not what you described, Rob, but that you've already come up with a better idea for a Sonic game than Sega has in about 15 years.
I will concede to your idea that my gaming idea is better than what it may be already.
And you had remember
like how bad is this that they completely like abandoned Sonic on GameCube for a bit and come up with like Shadow Hog for a game.
Shadow Hog, Shadow the Hedgehog. It's Shadow Hog.
Shadow
I was just gonna say the problem too is Sonic
hang out with Bruce Cannon.
Sonic's world is not particularly interesting to me, and the characters in it. You know what I mean? Like the Sega All-Star Tennis.
They gotta ditch those lame animal sidekicks too.
Well, Tails is cool.
Tails is one thing,
him.
but I mean, oh my lord.
Even Knuckles. Knuckles is like, what is he? A chinchilla? What is he?
Echidna.
Whatever.
But you know what's it's really interesting, Jay, because you said you like Sonic as a character, and they have so many TV series for Sonic out there. There's like a ton of anime stuff. Like they literally probably have like 600 different kind of episodes across the board that explore that character in that world.
I do.
If only one of them could make a great game.
I do. I like the idea of Sonic. Like I like the idea of Ezio. But
so how do we
I don't want to play them.
How do we
year.
fix Sonic? But how do we fix Sonic?
Did you just compare Sonic the Hedgehog and Ezio Auditore?
The idea. Like I like the idea of the Sonic character. I like the idea of Ezio, but I don't like playing Ezio every single year.
Don't make me defend Ezio. I'm sorry. We're getting off of Rob's question too, but
I wasn't attacking.
No, it's fine because it's the same thing. How do we make Assassin's Creed fresh? How do we fix it? How do we fix Sonic?
I have a weird relationship with Assassin's Creed. That whole Ezio, what they call the Ezio trilogy now, because on one hand, I don't feel like we needed to get 3 games that were basically around the same character, given the way that series is sort of set up to feature different characters from game to game. On the other hand, I really, really like Ezio. Ezio is one of my favorite game characters, and what I think is really great about the fact that we got 3 games is you got to spend Ezio's entire life with him. And that's really
Ezio,
cool.
huh?
Yeah, like that's not something you get to experience with a lot of video game characters. So you get to play Ezio as a young man, you get to play him as a full-grown adult. You get to play him as an older man, and I think it's really neat that we get to basically play through an character's entire life with him.
I don't think those games are appreciated the way they should be because we just expect another one. Oh, it's November, we're going to get another one. Whereas I think if you took a few years, people would really dive into the game and maybe more into the fiction. Again, I'm going to bring up Mass Effect. If we had a Mass Effect every year, it would take away. But, we get one every 3 years, and that's good enough. I think if they did that with Assassin's Creed, I would enjoy it more. Amen, brother.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I'm just saying I have a very complicated relationship with those 3 games in particular because I like that I got to know that character as well as they did, but I also don't feel like I needed to spend $60 every other year to fully appreciate
Ubisoft
that, right?
putting their foot in their mouth saying that Assassin's Creed was going to be a trilogy.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. Right? Like, here's the thing, right, Glenn? Like, if you would have just taken those releases and, like, spread them out, like, 5 years apart, and they have other Assassin's Creeds in the middle, it's like, oh, here's another Ezio one. then you'd be excited.
Not if they were the same games.
No, but you know what I mean? Like, instead of having like 3 of those games in a row.
But you're saying
Like,
take a couple of years and then come back and visit with Ezio again.
To come back and visit that world and that character. It's like, oh, cool, because you remember that. It's a little bit of a nostalgia factor. So maybe that's one way to kind of refresh it. But a guy like Sonic, I don't know how they can fix a guy like Sonic unless they really, honestly, instead of trying to put a title out every year that nobody seems to care about, they really just kind of, make it work and find the best things, that make that character and what established him. Even if you're not a fan of blast processing, speedrunning, platforming, do that for everybody that loves it. Take like the Rayman Legends approach, which is kind of like, a run and gun kind of thing. But, do that for Sonic. Rayman Legends is such a great platformer.
It really is.
And I can only imagine how great it would be if that was Sonic.
But they did. They
world.
did a few years ago on Xbox Live and PSN. They brought out, what was it, Sonic 4? And
but that's not
Sonic
like
4
it's
episode
not
1.
as good though.
No, it's
but
not.
it's not
And
as good as the other stuff. They rushed it out.
So what you're saying is get the Rayman team to make a 2D Sonic platformer.
Pretty much what I'm saying, or at least make Sonic a playable character in Rayman Legends.
I'll chime in and say I don't know how they can fix Sonic, and I feel badly for the poor guy.
Take him to the vet.
Is he broken?
Put him
Everybody that's listening, let us know. Let us know if Sonic is broken.
Yeah, is he
Email
broken?
us.
He's
message
He's
us.
broken our hearts.
I don't
but
think
I don't think he needs to.
there's any doubt that Sonic is broken. I just don't know if he's fixable.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's a good one. Yeah.
Okay, I got like 10 other things I want to talk about, guys, but we're running a little bit over, but all in good way. So I'm just gonna kind of go to like the last big question. All right, there's a lot of like newer franchises out there that kind of have a little bit of a gimmick. And I'm talking, of course, with the Skylander stuff, the Disney Infinity, and now Nintendo's own Amiibos, where these franchises require you to have like a physical, interaction with it, like a figure and the game. Is this good? Is this bad? Are these kind of things worse than DLC? Is it better? How do you guys feel about this whole new genre of gameplay and these new franchises that require you to have figures and toys?
I love it. I think it's brilliant. If I think Skylanders were maybe a little bit more adult themed, I'd be all over it. I have played the first game and I thought it was fantastic. It played a lot like Banjo-Kazooie did back in the day. I think they're great. I think kids love them. I think it's marketing genius. I mean, the game itself is great. So you have a great game, and then you have all these figures that you can collect. And sure, there's a new game each year for Skylanders, but you can use all your figures for that. I think it's amazing.
I guess we'll get to Amiibo, but just off the top of my head, as you're talking, how has this not been done with Pokemon? Literally collect them all.
Yeah, but they didn't bring out figures. So you're
but that's what I mean. Like,
I know.
That's what I mean. How come they haven't done that yet?
I'm kind of stunned.
Imagine all the Pokemons.
I'm kind of stunned it took Nintendo as long to get to the idea as it did, to be totally honest. Because, yeah, you're right. That seems like it's just tailor-made for it.
The Amiibo thing, we don't know a ton of information on it now. So, all I can talk about is what we heard at E3. You don't need them for really anything. You can use them. There hasn't been like an Amiibo game announced. I mean, you can use them in Mario Kart 8, you can use them in Smash Brothers, but you don't need them. So again, Nintendo is kind of one-upped the competition. Do you know what I mean? You don't need them to play a game.
And to be honest, that's the aspect that intrigues me the most. Because it's like it can enhance your gaming experience. It obviously appeals to collectors. But it's not necessary. Like, I can't get into Skylanders unless I drop a bunch of money on all these figures and, got to do that stuff. Same with Disney Infinity. I just can't get into it. But Nintendo's doing it right, I think.
I think if they brought out something closer to our hearts, like if they brought out a Star Wars game like that, a Masters of the Universe game, or if they brought out like a Transformers game.
Well, I'll say it, man. Like, I'm probably going to grab a Disney Infinity 2.0 because I dig those Avengers figures a lot. I think the figures are really cool.
It's really all about what you're into. And for me, I'm becoming a Disney fan for obvious reasons, but I've never cared for the Disney films. There's nothing wrong with them.
They're going to do a Star Wars one.
Of course they will.
Disney Infinity 3.0 will
Of course
Star
they will.
Wars,
But I'm
right?
saying if there was a big boy Star Wars game like that where I could collect the figures and put them in.
And those Clone Wars character designs would slide right into Disney Infinity, man. They would fit right in. They wouldn't even have to redesign the characters.
Well, I mean, when you Was it
Rebels
what is
will
it when
definitely
you
probably take advantage of it.
when you unlock everything in the first Disney Infinity, you get a lightsaber. So that's pretty cool. So I'm all for it, Rob. I think it's a great idea. I mean, again, being a big figure collector, I'm all for it.
So is this like worse than like DLC stuff though? Because I mean, you know, all these different maps come out for Call of Duty, or you get all these different extra side missions for other games, and you kind of got to play it to kind of keep up with it. Is this like worse than that, or is this better? What do you guys think?
I think the difference, and I, without trying to talk for you guys, like just I know a lot of your dislike for DLC and digital content, guys, revolves around the notion that you don't have anything physical, right? You're going to move on to the next console and have to get that game again, or you're not going to have it anymore, and there's no physical copy. And I think the difference is, regardless of whether you're using the game or not, you're still buying the figurines. You still have the figures. Like, there's still a physical thing you're collecting. And I think that's why that's different. Like, there's certainly a cost involved, like, very much so. I mean, those figures aren't cheap once you start buying a bunch of them, right? But at the same time, I mean, I look at Jay's house and I see all the Star Wars figures everywhere, and they're not any cheaper either. But I think that's the difference, is you still have something to show for the money you're spending, whether you're using the game or kind of getting that game experience or not.
I've never played Disney Infinity, so I can't speak for that game. But again, I've played Skylanders, and you don't need all the characters to beat the game. You can finish the game with the 3 you get. So they're saying, you are going to buy these extra characters, of course, but you don't need to buy all these guys if you don't want to. Parents beware. If you buy Skylanders, it doesn't stop at just the game.
Well, and this is what I get to, right? Like, there is a huge cost to these kind of things. Like, every kid is going to see, like, the new Disney guys on the shelf. I mean, it's kind of like the perfect Kingdom Hearts scenario, if you think about it.
It is,
it's all
yeah.
like the Disney stuff kind of thrown in there. And then Star Wars, and now Avengers, and all that stuff. And, of course, Skylanders already has a huge following. And now we're going to get all Nintendo stuff. So it's not like, oh, don't worry, Johnny, you'll never need those other figures because you can beat it with the pack-ins. Like, what kid is going to settle for that? I mean, and I guess in some ways it's a little bit easier for parents to spend like $8.99 or whatever they cost on a new figure rather than $60 on a new game, just to enhance the experience of an existing product. But at what point is too much, because it's just like, I remember our other producer on the NES Club, Mike Frucios, his nephew is like all into the Skylanders stuff, and like I believe he was saying it's like crazy to try to keep up with what's out there. It's just there's so much. I mean, you guys who work at retailers, or at least have in the past, know the kind of merchandise volume that comes through on that stuff. Is that intimidating? I mean, what do you think? I mean, as a collector,
No.
It's one thing, but as just like your average Johnny 10-year-old gamer, it's like, oh my god.
I can't speak for most people, only myself.
Sure, you can. I do it all the time.
It's never bothered me because it's something I've always done. I've always collected Star Wars figures. So my whole life, there's always been that expense.
I really don't see it as any different than every kid who's ever come into my store buying packs of Pokemon cards, or has come in buying every Pokemon game ever released. Like, I mean, it's a new thing to collect, and it's a new way of collecting it, and there's a new level of interactivity to it. But kids have been collecting stuff since the dawn of time. Kids have been spending money they don't have on things they don't need since well before I was a kid.
Yeah.
So here's the final thing for you guys, then, and I think you've kind of alluded to it. Are you guys going to be getting Amiibo, Disney Infinity, and Skylanders? Which ones are you jumping on? What's the trigger points, and why?
I'll be getting the Amiibos for sure. When we heard the rumors a couple months back that Nintendo was kind of doing their own Skylander thing, regardless of what the game was going to be, I was going to collect the figures anyway. So Disney Infinity, not until I see Star Wars, and Skylanders, no, I will not be.
The Amiibo figures for sure. At least some characters. I don't know if I'll get everybody, but I mean, Link and Samus are no-brainers for me. But probably Mario in there too, I would imagine. If
Wii
not,
Fit Trainer, come on.
Wii Fit Trainer, possibly. I'm totally.
She's in the first set. I'm not even.
I'm
kidding.
totally into the Marvel figures for Disney Infinity, so I have every intention of picking that up. And I think part of it too is just I really enjoyed Lego Marvel superheroes. If you're a comic fan, like if you're a Marvel fan, there's so much fan service in that game. It's a lot of fun, and I mean, we don't have any kids in our house. It was just a bunch of adults playing it, but we had a blast with it. And I see a lot of stuff in those Disney Infinity 2.0 trailers that really give me fond memories of that. So I feel like the gameplay probably would have a lot of similarities. But I really like those characters, and if nothing else, I'll probably be grabbing the figures.
Let me revise. If they came out with Todd and Copper from The Fox and the Hound, I'd get them. Okay, go, Rob.
I honestly think I'd probably be more keen to get Disney Infinity stuff over the Amiibo stuff, partly because of what you think the selling point is, Jay. You don't need them. You know, they look kind of cool, and to be honest, I'll probably get Wii Fit Trainer because I like Wii Fit, and I think that's probably who I'll want to play in Smash.
But you
Brothers
can level up,
everyone.
like you can level up your Mario guy and then put him in Mario Kart 8 and Smash Brothers, and you'll get perks in each game. I think it's brilliant. Like the Wii U controller already has that sensor built into it. Like how amazing is that? I love Nintendo.
It's cool. It's cool, but because like it's not necessary to play some of these games, I'm not like super interested in getting it for gameplay. As a collector, I'll probably get a few of them that stand out like in terms of design. But I'll probably get Disney Infinity sooner than later, starting with like the Marvel Avengers stuff that comes out, and of course Star Wars. Glenn, did you have something to say?
No, I did not, but I agree with you.
And with that, we'll close out the show. Another GamerCast. Glenn gets the final word. Yeah! Hey. All right, thanks again for listening, everyone. I'm Rob McCallum with Glenn Stanway.
See you later, guys. Take care.
And, of course, Jay Bartlett.
All right, I'll see you guys later.